Evening. I was hoping to demonstrate something that I found very impressive today. I was looking at my BBC Micro. See if I can get that here. This is my BBC Micro. Well, it's not really my BBC Micro. And thinking about how, using these old kind of devices that I recently got working. These work very hard, and they can store 200k. High density, pushing it, to the limit kind of thing. The high density, you can get 200k per side, and the most sophisticated ones have a double side as well, so they can go under the floppy disk and read the other side. So making it a total of 400k, 200k per side, which was considered pretty respectable at this kind of time. And then I was thinking, looking at my resolutions, looking at my modern PC, comparing it, especially when they're connected now, because I've got a cable working that's from Paul Vernon and Martin Barr, their UPRS thing, and it makes you think about how these computers, the modern and the old, are connected, and how you would actually try to relate the two. And this got me thinking a little bit. With the BBC, the high kind of color mode was mode 2, which was 160 pixels across by 240 pixels down, so making it a total 16240 at 4-bit resolution. That means 8 colors were on display, including, well, basically 8 colors that could be displayed. So I got looking at this, how much does this actually take to store in one of these floppy disks? Okay, so using that as a kind of a benchmark, I got to this number. Down here, I calculated that assuming that there was only one color, so in other words, just 1 or 0, it would take 5k to store that in one of these floppy drives. And as you go up to like the more realistic level, it would be, which is what it actually takes, using a program called image to BBC. Image, the word image, and then let number 2 BBC, which some very clever guy has done. In the UPR, the Stardot forums, he's got his thing there, and this is stardot.org.uk. If you go there and look under software, you'll find this. It's called image to BBC, and what this very clever program does is it converts a modern day screen to like the old BBC format, and this is, it shows you when it's actually converted, it comes to around 20k. So that number is what I've got highlighted there. It's roughly 19,000 something bytes, so that's about 20k, give or take. So what this takes, and then this shows you basically as you would. Then I started kind of comparing it modern wise. This is actually going to take about 0.1 of a double density side. So one of these, it will take about 10% to store one of those, a whole one at high density. Not the normal kind of single density, the high density. And then more realistically, if you wanted to, so I started thinking, what about modern computers? What do these take up? Okay, well, normally you would have something like 8-bit at the minimum, but really even more, you'd have 16-bit as a minimum. So if you were trying to do like a BBC kind of display, which is not realistic because nobody would have that sort of resolution on a display anymore, would they? But how much would that take? That would take 0.3 of one of these. And then I thought, well, okay, so just to see how far we've moved along in time since those days, I'm going to change some of the numbers around. So let's see what happens if I do like the original kind of PC game kind of display, which was like a low res for the PC. So at 1 bit, so black and white, that would take a tiny, like 5% of your disk. Okay, nothing too unbelievable there. Let's see as we go up, so more realistically, again trying to be realistic, 8-bit, so you could have like a good range of colors, up to 256 colors on the screen. It would take sort of like over a third of one of these. So it's still possible, isn't it? You can still kind of see how technology is kind of you can see it moving as it would, in a kind of logical kind of progression. So it's interesting comparing how we've moved on. More realistically, well, again, at this time, I don't think they had anything like 16-bit. They came along about 2000, I think, maybe later, 1990, late 1990s. So now let's move it up a bit more, and then have like this, which nobody really ever used. But anyway, it shows you, like, at this stage, I remember it was possible to use 16-bit still, because this was like later half of 1990. So we're talking to store. It's still, even then, it's possible you could store using three sides of these. So using your floppy drive, you could get around a few times, using the top side, the bottom side, and another side to each side. It would take about 3 sides, so one of these side 1, one of these side 2, and then another one on side 1 as well. So again, it's still kind of looking possible at 640. So that's still okay. And then, that would have been late 1990s. Now moving on a bit, as we got towards 2000, we started getting displays like this, didn't we? 1024 by 768. These became pretty common. It was like a standard 1024 by quite a long time, I remember. But so at 1-bit, it was just black and white. You could actually use still one of these amazingly floppy disks, and it would fit in half of it, one side, half of a side. And as we more realistically, at this kind of stage, we definitely was able to do 16-bit, I remember. And then and sometimes at 32-bit there was 2 megabyte cards and 4 megabyte cards and 16, even 8 megabyte cards for the really serious gamers around 2000, late 90s. And so for this now, it's getting still realistic. I mean, you could use 7 sides of these to store a whole uncompressed screen at this resolution. So it's still looking possible. So it's still seeable. It's still seeable there. But now, as we move suddenly, as we kind of crank it up to beyond this, so like to 1280 by, which is still in use today, this kind of resolution, you see suddenly the numbers shoot up quite enormously. Realistically, they'd be used around here, wouldn't they? So you see, they just go off a scale here at this point, just because it's like, and this has become like a minimum nowadays. It's like that's nothing nowadays. In 2014 terms, that's like, it's a tiny display, and yet that's pretty high resolution compared to what was around in 2000 or whatever, or before 2000. Well, it's reasonably, it's considered a high resolution then. It's considered reasonably high resolution, and the amount it would take for this is like, it's a quarter of a gigabyte. There's 262, so basically, no, sorry, yeah, is that a quarter of a megabyte? I can't even see this correctly. No, a quarter of a megabyte. Is that right? No, it's 2 megabytes, 2.6 megabytes, just to actually store. It's just gone off the scale all of a sudden. You can't see it anymore quite clearly, can you? This is just at 16-bit. It's not even at the full 32-bit. So it would take like 13 sides of these. You can't quite see it all of a sudden. How did that happen? What happened? That's gone so high. And for a 32-bit, for a 32-bit, it's like 5 megabytes for a 32 bits per pixel. So it's 32 bits, so it's like 4 bytes each pixel. It's now going to take 26 of these. 26, and you can't really see yourself. Can you imagine trying to load an image into a BBC Micro that could actually theoretically be capable of displaying that using something like this? How many times you'd have to be changing your disk over? you'd have to be changing your disc, well, 13 times, because it would read the second side automatically, but you have to be changing it 13 times. And that's not even really that high resolution. You can see where this is going, can't you? What's happened, you can kind of see where it's gone to a certain extent, but after that you can't really see how did it get that far, how do things go on that far, and in which case, and see, you can't see it really. I don't know if you can agree with me. Anyway, I just thought I'd share those with you. Very impressive. I think I can't even understand them really, the numbers, but it shows you how far it's just gone it's gone off the scale, how far we've grown, I think. Anyway, thanks very much.